Hello and welcome back. We are going to get started talking about example 2, but before we do, we're going to define a particular concept called congruent segments. Congruent segments are segments that have the same length. Segments, line segments, right, that have the same length. So here we have segment PQ and segment RS, and you can see that they're congruent because they have these little tick marks right here. And whenever you have a tick mark, that means that those two things are congruent. So then you can say line segment PQ, like that, is congruent to line segment RS. And you use that notation. Now, if you go back, when we were talking about line segments up here, we were talking about XZ, and we didn't have that little line segment notation on there. And we were talking about distance, right? The distance of XZ with this last problem was 4 1/2. But notice that this has an equal sign and this has a congruent sign. And that's really the difference. So for notation-wise, you're going to need to know when you put a line on top and when you don't. And the biggest thing is this right here, this symbol. Whenever you're talking about congruent, you're talking about a figure, and this is the figure. PQ, line segment PQ, is congruent to line segment RS. Up here, you're talking about the distance, and there's an equals. So whenever there's equals, you don't put the line segment on top of there. You just call it XC. Okay, so we're going to be doing this throughout the year, so hopefully you'll understand the difference more, and I'll talk about it more, but I just wanted to go ahead and point that out. So you're going to use certain types of symbols when you talk about congruence, and you're going to use different types when you talk about when you use an equal sign, and you actually put a number, a measurement on that number. Whenever you're using numbers, you use equal sign. You don't use congruence. Okay, numbers use equal sign, and you don't put that little line on top. Okay, perfect. Now, if I actually drew a different, let's say I drew something else, and I'm going to call this one, make this one, okay, just come on, line. Can you see that? This is trying to make it better, but I feel like it's just getting worse. But just kind of stay with me on this. Okay, this is a very fat line. During the coronavirus, this line has been eating a lot of snacks. It's a little chubby, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to call this line segment AB. I'm going to put the B up here. And then I'm going to have another line segment that's going to be over here, like this. And I'm going to call, there's an end point here, end point here. This one's going to be called CD. Okay? Now, what I want to say is that these two are the same, but they're not the same distance as these. They're different distance. So how I would denote that is I would use tick marks. But if I say one tick mark, then that one tick mark means it's the same there and there. And it's not the same. So what I have to use is a different number of tick marks. So for here, I'd use 2 tick marks and put 2 tick marks here. And that just means that, okay, these that have 1 tick mark, they are the same length. And these have 2 tick marks, and they are the same length, but they're not the same length as those. Okay? And then I would just write that. AB line segment is congruent to CD. Like that. All right, cool. So moving on. Construction is a way of creating a figure that is more precise. And we're really going to be doing constructions like towards the end of the year. But whenever you do constructions, you use a a ruler, and you can use this is a compass, and you can use a compass. But it's just a way of creating figures that are more precise. So just wanted to define that for you. So for example 2, we're going to copy a line segment right here. This is our line segment. Now they talk about 3 different ways to copy it. The first way is to sketch, the next is to draw, and the third way is to construct. Remember, constructing is a way that's really super precise. Okay, so we are going to do all those 3 for a segment that's congruent, which means it's the same as MN. So whenever you sketch, a sketch is just kind of like an estimate, right? So I'm looking at it, I'm giving it like a really, really good eyeball, and I'm just like, okay, all right, that's my estimate. So sketch, draw a segment that is congruent to MN. So I just say, hey, right there, MN. That's my estimate. I just kind of looked at it, I eyeballed it. You know, it's an estimate. It's probably not perfect, but that's just my estimate. Okay? The next step is to draw or to measure it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little M here. Right, and then I'm going to go to my ruler, put this at 0, and then it's going to be, what is that, like 1.5, like right before 1.5. Yeah, it's about right before 1.5. So I'm going to put this right there, and then I'm going to draw it so it gets to right a little bit before 1.5. There's 1.5 right there. Do a little end point, and boom. So I'd say this one's closer, right? That's about by measuring it. And then there is constructing. So for constructing, I am actually going to do this. Okay, what are we going to do? Okay, I'm going to make a point. This is going to be my point. And then I'm just going to draw a line like this. Okay, so for these on your homework, you need to have a, what do you need to have? A ruler and a compass. Okay, so this is going to be my M. And then I'm going to take my lovely compass right here. And there's a pointy end, and then there's the pencil, right? So I'm going to put the pointy end right on the middle of that M. Oh, sorry about that. This pointy thing is going to go right in the middle. Oh, I keep hitting this. I'm sorry. And then I'm going to stretch this pencil out until it hits right there and in. And that's just about perfect. So if you can see here, I got my pointy part right in the middle of M. And then my pencil is right there at N. And so it's really like marking that distance. That is the exact distance of this line. And then it just kind of holds there, you see? Well, I'm sorry. You couldn't see that. It was off screen. Okay, so look here. The pointy thing is right in the middle of N, and then my pencil is really, if I could hold it steady, is right in the middle of N as well. And see, if I pull that distance away, that is the exact distance. So that's why they say the construction is more precise. So then I'm going to go over here to my lovely orange line where I put the M. And I'm going to put, you see my little orange M right there. Okay, I'm going to put the pointy thing on M like that. And then as I kind of rotate this up, okay, the pointy thing is right there on M. And then I just kind of make this like little like, it's kind of like a little hash mark. And that pencil, can you see that? Yeah, it marks the exact distance. And then that's where I put it right there, right where that marks, and then that's gonna be my N. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go over it with like a darker color. So I think I'm gonna try this blue. I did it in a light color on purpose. So then I just kind of go over it with the, and then there you go. Now that is the most precise out of all three. And the direction, you know how this is like tilted and this is kind of tilted? They didn't have to be tilted. The direction doesn't really matter with this because we're just talking about the distance of it. So notice that the estimate was probably the one that was the most off. Measuring got pretty close, but when we did the actual construction, that is the most precise and accurate. So there you go. Okay, now it is your turn to check it out. I want you to work on example 2, sketch, draw, and construct a segment congruent to JK. So right here, the first you're going to estimate, then you're going to use a ruler, and then you're going to use a compass and a ruler to construct. So go ahead and get started. Where's my friend? Oh, here's my friend, the pause dragon. So make sure you get your rulers out and your compass, and go ahead and go for that. When you get done, so press pause now, work it out. When you get done, press play, and we'll talk about it. All right, we're back. Let's go ahead. The first thing we're going to do is estimate this. JK. Okay, I'm going to give it the eyeball test. And I don't know, I'm going to put a J there. And I'm just going to say it's about, that looks about right. Okay, there we go. Boom, estimate, done. So if you did something like that, good work. Okay, next thing we're going to do is get a ruler out. Where'd my ruler go? Here it is. I just can't pick it up off the table. Okay, so I'm going to make a J. Here's my J. I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to measure. So put that little hash mark of 0. And it really looks like it's, these are 16ths. Remember, so 1/16, 2/16, which would be the same thing as an 1/8. So 2 1/8 or 2/16. And so that's right about there. So yeah, 2/16. Make that K. So that would be drawing, what they consider drawing. And then the last one is to construct, okay? So I'm going to use my lighter color again, use my orange. And I'm going to, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to actually do it a little bit above because it's hard for me to get it all in the screen. So I'm just going to do it over here to the side. I'm going to make a dot for the J and then just draw a line like that. And the distance of this line doesn't matter because this is going to be my end product. It's not my end product, it's just what I'm starting with. So this is my J here. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to get out my compass and I'm going to go up here, remember, and I'm going to mark the distance with my compass using, yeah, so the pointy thing's going to go on J, and then the pencil part's going to go on K, and I'm shooting for the middle, the pointy thing being in the middle of that point, and the pencil being in the middle. And, you know, I always have it straight up, but for you guys to see, it's easier to see if it's kind of over like this. But, yeah. So I'm just marking that distance, and that looks about right there. So the pointy thing and the pencil's right there. So that's how long. So then this keeps that, holds that distance in place. And then I go down here and I put the pointy thing on J. And I always like to hold this as a pencil. Like, I don't use my other hand. I just hold this as a pencil, right? And then I kind of just like, uh-oh. I have a little bit of a problem because my camera is in the way of this pencil. Oh, shoot. That just fell out. Okay, I got to start over. Okay, no problem. Okay, go back up here. Mark the distance. So pointy thing, pencil, get that perfect distance. Yep, that looks about perfect. Can you see that? Okay. Now I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to move it down here. I'm going to move my paper up because my pencil was hitting my camera, so I couldn't do it right. Okay, pointy thing goes on J. I hold it with just one hand, and the way I'm holding this is kind of like a pencil. And then I just kind of move it back and forth, and it creates this kind of like hash mark, like a pencil hash mark. And wherever that hash mark hits my orange line right here, you can see if I get it close. You can see where the hash mark hits the orange line. It hits the orange line like right there in that spot. That's the exact distance. So right there, and then that is my K. And because this orange line extends, I'm going to use a darker color just to say that I was just using that for my construction. Or if you had a pencil, which would be perfect, then you just erase that portion of the line, which would be best because you should be doing all these in pencil. All the notes should be done in pencil. And there we have it. There's K right there, JK. And that's the most precise. All right, great job with example 2. I'll see you in a little bit for example 3.